First of all, I guess, how long have you been in Bonham?
Since 1905.
1905.
This place right here.
God.
Now, I haven't been since 1905. I've been here since 1906. I was born in 1906.
No. No, I ought to admit that I'm a little nervous, and I don't know exactly what all I'm supposed to ask you, but...
But my family has owned this place and has lived here since 1905.
1905. Can you tell us something about when you were a teenager, things you did for just pastime activities? And
Well, I got up at 4:30 every morning and milked the cows. Came in and ate my breakfast and took the cows to the pasture up Old Rector Road, which then was the most important highway between this area and San Francisco. In the afternoon, I came home from school and got in the wood for the night and for the next day, cooking, and went after the cows and milked the cows again, my share of them.
Pretty well took care of your day then, didn't it?
Certainly did.
How many were in your family?
You mean children?
Children, yes.
3 girls.
3 girls.
One 7 years older than I and one 7 years younger than I.
Did you always attend schools here in Bonham?
Yeah.
Or here in, let's see. What were some of the school activities?
Except college.
Except college. Where did you go to college?
Texas University at Austin, East Texas University of Commerce, North Texas University at Denton, George Peabody University in Nashville, Tennessee, Alfonso Tracy University in Torreon, Coahuila, Mexico, New York University.
Goodness. Were there any specific school activities that you were most interested in, or subjects?
Well, I was always very interested in art, and I always took art wherever I went, regardless of other subjects. And I was always interested in languages, and I always studied foreign languages. And I always had hard teachers. In fact, one of my last English teachers was a man, and 95 was the failing grade in his class. Because he said, you're going out as teachers of English. If you can't make more than 95 on your papers, you have no business going out to teach children to speak English.
Goodness.
And that was great.
Yeah, that
because
produced a lot of the best teachers.
We really did get out and study hard because we wanted to make that above 95.
In all the years that you've been in Bonham, can you tell me some of the changes that you've noticed, or different?
Well, at first Bonham was named Bodark, and then the name was changed to Bonham. That was a big change. And then there were Indians, many Indians in Bonham and around about territory, Comanches as well as other Indians. And this place was an Indian hunting ground north of the railroad. Especially, my father used to plow around tree trunks and tree stumps by way of cultivation, and he would come in from the field mad because he had plowed up, as he said, a bushel basket full of arrowheads. And they dulled his plows, was why he was mad. And Powder Creek is named Powder Creek because the white people hid the powder that they were to use with their guns in Powder Creek, in the creek there, because as they battled with the Indians.
Yeah.
We still find Indian arrowheads and Indian, what do they call them, the spearhead things around on the place sometimes. And that, and I remember that the Indians used to come and invade houses. For instance, there was Mrs. Evans here, and they were always invading her house, her parents' house. And one time they went into the house, the Indians went into the house and just tore the house up practically, digging down in all the trunks and cabinets and everything like that, hunting for something. And when they finally told them what they were looking for a loaf of bread, because loaves of bread had just been, people had just started making the bread in loaves. And the Indians somewhere had had a loaf of bread, and they liked it so much they decided that they'd go and find them some more. In hunting for this loaf of bread, they were digging down in one trunk, and they came up, and all of them went into just an ecstasy of talk, Indian talk, because they had found a Masonic apron. Now, I'm sure you know what a little Masonic apron is. And then the chieftain who was with them told the Evans family that never again would their house be invaded because they had found this Masonic apron, and the chieftain was a Mason, and he knew, and so he said never again would they invade their home, which I thought was interesting. The Risser home that now is empty, but all my life there were huge oak trees out in that front yard with the limbs coming down all the way to the ground, and the Indians held their powwows under those trees, which I think is interesting too. And you know, you can go by and see those things there. Another thing that I think is very interesting, and I used to listen to the older men talk about it, was the buffalo hunts that came through Bonham. And Judge Broadfoot tells me that they were, the length of the rows of buffaloes was from the VA Center to the courthouse. And thousands of them would be going on this trek to the west, you see. And in this article right here in this paper I found a while ago, it tells about some of these buffalo runs, and it tells how many buffaloes were in it. Just thousands of buffaloes were in this. I don't see right now where it, oh, no, that's horses. Anyway, in here you'll find where it says how many thousands of buffaloes. Now these buffaloes went south from Bonham and through what we know now as Leonard. And there's a farm out south of Leonard called the Manning Farm because the family named Mannings owned this farm. And the wallas are still there. You can see them, the buffalo wallas. Now, buffalo wallas, when that buffalo would go into the water to cool off and come out and roll in the ground, see. And they would be pressing the ground down so hard, time after time, as they rolled and so forth, that they would press the dirt down until they're still packed like concrete. Those wallas are.
Really?
And Mrs. Meadow from Whitewright told me this afternoon that we could still go down there and see those wallas. And I've often wished I could teach history in Bonham High School, and I would demand that they let me borrow a bus, and that my history class would go down and sit on those edge of those wallas, and let Mr. Broadfoot or some of the other men who knew about those things tell us the stories of the buffalo.
That would be interesting.
See, this to me is as important as taking the buses to take people to ball games.
Right.
So much for the buffalo hunts. Anything else you'd like to know?
Let's see. I know now you attend the Methodist Church. Have you always attended?
When I was a little girl, I went to the Calvary Baptist Church. I don't recall what it was named Calvary, not because it was just right over here, and I could walk and go. But after I got large enough to go further, well, we went back to our Methodist Church.
I know that several excuse me, years ago, Panther Row was a big thing in Bonham. And can you remember anything that you could tell us about Panther Row?
No, because I was never allowed to go down Panther Row. I was a little girl, and little girls didn't go down that way.
Let's see, what else do I have? What have you, throughout your, life, what's something that you've really enjoyed or something you found that...
Well, listening to the older people tell about early life in Bonham, for instance, it always interested me to... I remember the streetcars that we had in Bonham, and they would go out as far as Lake St. Clair. I don't know if you know where Lake St. Clair is now, but it's still north of town, out north of where the John Reeses live. And at one time it was a beautiful, beautiful lake. And out there's where we had our fairgrounds, and the fairgrounds of Bonham, Texas were well known everywhere. We had horse racing, I mean, just fabulous horse racing, not just horse racing, but horses, they brought them here from many places. And they were very fine horses, and people came to see them. And then we had log rollings that were interesting. They would pile up these logs and see whose horses could pull the most number, because they were heavy. And if your horse could pull it, well, of course you were had something good. Now it says here, many of the best horsemen and the finest horses in the Union would attend the annual races in Bonham, Texas. And that's interesting, I think, for you all think that the whole little Bonham. But at one time it was known as one of the really greatest places there is. It was in the United States. And I remember seeing the first airplane that ever came to Bonham.
Really?
It landed down in what we call Simpson Park now, and everybody, of course, went to see it. It was by the Wright brothers, and they were there to explain it and that sort of thing. And then in World War I, this field right across here was the landing field for the airplanes. And most people had never seen an airplane when it began in World War I, and they would all rush out to see those planes come in. Of course, not very many came in, but 2 or 3 was a whole lot for us, don't you know, at that time. And I remember the first automobile, or the first car that came to Bonham. I was going up this road to bring cows in one night, and the man came along and stopped and let me ride a little piece. And that was just the greatest thing that happened to me. And that the picnics and log rollings and things like that we used to have, you'd pay $0.25 to ride around the picnic ground one time in a car, see, because nobody had cars, and you know, like that. So that was pretty exciting. Another thing that we have to be proud of is at one time the Bonham cotton mills were the largest cotton mills in the United States and the most successful in the state of Texas, I mean. And that was along about 1901. And you know, it was just a fabulous industry at that time. Another thing we had back in those days that I wish that people would resurrect now is the Opera House.
Oh, yes.
With Miss while Miss Belle Beard Gober is still alive, because she was one of the great pianists of that day. And the opera people said they would always cherish coming to Bonham, Texas, because if some member of their cast could not play, Miss Belle Beard Gober could step in at the last minute without ever having practiced with them and play their pieces beautifully. So they always felt safe in coming to Bonham. Another thing that I remember how excited we were about was when Bonham joined 90 other towns in Texas in a contest to be the cleanest city in Texas. And Bonham won the prize. And I think whenever you're competing against 90 other cities,
Certainly.
a little town like Bonham, that was a really great. And the Hollands magazine sponsored that contest and gave Bonham, at that time, big lights that went around the courthouse lawn. And we had never had lights, you know, we had the town light in it. So another rather funny thing, but a very important thing that was important for Bonham was that we had a ladies' restroom in the courthouse. And it said that we were one of the first cities in the whole United States to provide and maintain a restroom for ladies who came to the city to shop.
That is
And then we also did something else nice for the farmers who came into town. We had a free stockyard where the farmers could leave their stock in their wagons, even if they spent the night, you know, for free. And this road out here that we think of as just being a little funny little road right now, a little bypass, was, as I said a while ago, one of the most important highways in the United States. It was called the Ocean to Ocean Highway. It went from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, came right through Bonham, went out there. And during those days, of course, we had no concrete or no pavement or anything like that. And my father would keep his horses and harness just ready to go out in muddy weather or rainy weather to pull people out of the mud out here, because they'd get stuck up with their wagon wheels or their buggy wheels, whatever, and he'd take his horses out and pull them out of the mud. So this was interesting to me, may not be to other people, but because I was a little bit of a part of that, I would watch them pull, you know.
Yes.
Another thing that I think we should be proud of in Bonham, and I can remember this, that we had a local band that gave a free concert on the courthouse lawn. One night each week, this little book says, in spring and summer, but I remember it on Sunday afternoons, and we would always go up to the courthouse and sit on the lawn, visit with our friends, and listen to the band play. And they were citizens, you know, like men, not just kids band. It was a band that was paid for by the Board of Trade. But Bonham had been built around a central courthouse, with the walkways around it, which is the old Spanish type of building a city. And so we carried out the bit of having a band to come and play while you sat and talked to your friends.
Okay.
Another thing that I will always remember, of course, is that the Adams family came here back in the 1800s, and they came to Bonham to establish the Bonham nurseries. And all north of town was the Bonham nurseries, all up and down Red River. And it was very famous. The wagon trains from Dallas, McKinney, Durant, and other places came to Bonham, Texas to get loads of trees and things to carry back to their town. And I have here a catalog on the Texas fruit at the World's Fair in 1904, and it gives these two pictures. This one is of Mr. Edmund Adams, and this is Mr. Bascom Adams. This was Ethelmore Adams' father, and this was his grandfather. Mm-hmm. And here it tells about their pear exhibit and so on like that they had at this fair. And they won prizes on it and that sort of thing. They specialized also in the grafting of new roses and made a specialty of their rose gardens. Another thing that I always think that we should remember at Bonham and to be proud of is the fact that we furnished the world one of its greatest missionaries, Miss Lila Roberts. And it worries me a great deal that every child in Bonham does not know about Miss Lila Roberts. Regardless of her church affiliation, she was a great Christian, and Mexico honored her many, many times for the work that she did. In fact, she was the one that finally proved to Mexico that girls could go to school and learn something. She built Roberts College for girls, but at that time only boys, men went to college. This is at one time in the United States only boys and men went to college. And I had the joy of working in Torreon and following Miss Lila Roberts' footsteps there to a great deal. While I was in Torreon teaching and working in the church, it was during the last religious revolution, and we kept our suitcases packed every night to be able to catch the first freight train out if a battle broke out in the city. And a lot of times we'd lie there listening to the Yaqui Indians tramping through the town, marching through the town on their way to battle wherever it was. Torreon was Pancho Villa's headquarters, and on weekends we would climb the mountains and go up and play around or walk around or observe the breastworks that he and his men had built, from which they fought from behind these breastworks, And so many people think of Pancho Villa as being nothing but a terrible thug, a bandit, and all these ugly, bad things, but they don't know the real history of Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa's family were peons, or, in other words, very poor people, and they worked on the farm, the ranch of a very rich man, and the rich man's son raped Pancho Villa's sister, and Pancho Villa killed the boy. Well, the minute he killed the rich man's son, of course, that made him an outlaw. And, they were after him. Well, of course, he had to take to the woods and so forth and so on to save his life. And all the other peons took to the woods with him because they thought, well, they may punish us too because we're peons too, But they also were going to support him because they knew he had done the right thing as far as they felt that the rich man should have been punished too, And so that's where he got his first army of bandits, as they were called, was that the peons were following him to help him in his war. And the people down there, in some of my classes, especially the conversation classes, the older people would tell about when Pancho Villa would come through town, he and his men, they would lie down on the floor and put their mattresses over them. So if the bullets came through, bullets would go through the mattresses and not hit them, you see. That sort of thing. And I don't know, Pancho Villa is a very exciting character, and his wife, his widow, is still living. And when you go down into Mexico, into Chihuahua, and through that part of the country, well, she's very gracious about meeting you and visiting with you and so forth and so on. And also, one thing is this picture right here. That's the first campfire group ever organized in Mexico. Miss Leela Roberts organized it. And before she died, she showed me a little small picture of that, and she said, when I die, I want you to have this picture. But when she died, her family couldn't find the picture. They said they didn't remember ever having seen it. So I didn't argue with them because, things like that can get misplaced. But then my family and I were back visiting in Mexico one summer, and it was my birthday, and we were in Roberts Social Center on my birthday, and I made the remark to the lady who was in charge that it was my birthday, and I also made the remark that something about Miss Leela Roberts organizing campfire there and so forth and so on, and how unhappy I had been when I didn't get this picture of the first group. And just before I left, she said, wait just a minute. And she went back and she brought out this picture and she says, I want to give you your birthday present.
Oh, that's nice.
And she had another one. But they look so beautiful. And this fountain is still there in the unit where Miss Roberts first had her social center and did her missionary work. And the next night, they were going to dedicate the little chapel that she had preached in or had carried on her religious work in. They were putting a cream-colored marble floor in it. And they were going to dedicate it to Miss Leela Roberts. They are very, very fond of the memory of Miss Leela Roberts, and it just seems that everybody knows about her. One time I was on the train, and I had been told not to get off the train for any reason until I reached a certain town. And we stopped at another town, and the conductor kept trying to get me to get off. And everybody else was getting off, and I said, no, no. And so then he asked to see my passport and so on, and he saw that I was from Bonham, Texas, and he looked at me and he says, Miss Leela Roberts, Miss Leela Roberts? And I said, yes, she's my friend. And that was just, all I needed to say. I got what I wanted after that. But it seems that she made such a marvelous record that the people still have not forgotten her and what she meant to Mexico and so forth and so on. Anything else?
I guess since you were working campfire for so very long, is there anything you can tell us about how how the program progressed in Bonham? Or?
Well, I would say it progressed by leaps and bounds, Laurie, because the girls, for the first time, had something that they wanted, something that made their lives a little bit more interesting and so on like that. And the first time that Mr. Caruth asked me to come and apply for a teacher's job in Bonham, and I did. And then later he called me in the office and started laughing and said, I want to tell you why I wanted you to come and teach in Bonham School. It wasn't because you were a good teacher. He was teasing me. But he said, because I wanted you to organize campfire games. Well, okay. We put an ad in the paper that all girls' mothers, all girls who wanted to join campfire and their mothers, come to a certain meeting place at a certain time. And 90 girls came, but only 2 mothers came. One of those mothers was Miss Ruby Durham. But anyway, we soon had, of course, all those girls organized, and we soon had leaders there. But then you know how it progressed from there, and how practically every girl in Bonham belonged during those years. Now I don't know what the membership is now, but we did progress very fast, and I think that we did a great work from the angle that we did establish our own camp. Very few cities in the United States have their own camp. Only the big cities do. And then we have many things to offer that the Bonham girls would not have in a town this small now, because right now Bonham is what we call a small town, whereas at one time it was bigger than Dallas. People in Dallas got their mails here, came to Bonham to get their mail. But anyway, my feeling is that the girls of Bonham have lived their program in such a way that we should be very proud of them.
Well, I guess, unless you've just got something else you'd like to tell.
Well, no, I was just reading this before you came, though. The first time I had ever read this article right here, written in 1951, but it's written about the old times in Bonham, and it really is very interesting. Part of it is, it tells about, I shall close this writing with an account of a buffalo hunt Judge J.P. Simpson wrote of in 1876. He said there were rumors of large herds of buffalo up and around Whitesboro, and so many that the neighbors and friends needed to have them taken care of and killed. And the Indians, especially the Comanches, were liable to get them if they did. They went west of the present site of Whitesboro, about 50 miles west of Bonham, where they found a large herd grazing peacefully. By stealth, they got many a buffalo hide, also the hump, leaving the rest to the coyotes and the wolves and other predatory animals. They slept the first night peacefully, only to awaken and find their oxen gone. What a dilemma. Not a pound of meat or a single hide was molested, and so on like that. And it goes on to tell about the Indians, and the Indians did not bother the whites, but next day they planned to take their scalps. Next day. In some way they managed to get the news from the Indians that they were friendly, but a white man named Carter, who was a brother of the widow Russell, who lived near Seven Oaks, knew Indians, and it seemed he knew some of their language. He, the white man, told the white hunters they had all better scatter for home, the widow referring to being a relative of the above Russells, spoken of as such pioneers of Bonham, and so forth and so on, like that. Don't you know? I mean, it's interesting. I have a letter here that I would like to read because it kind of shows. I'm read to you because it kind of shows you the way these people thought. This is written by this Mr. Edmund Adams, who was my husband's great-grandfather, to Mr. Bascom Adams, who was his father, you see. And it's written December the 26th, 1888. Bascom, my son, this your 21st birthday. Well, what does that signify? It signifies a good deal. On this day, not of your own volition, but or any form or fault of mine, but on account of laws under which we live, you are no longer subject to my control. I can no longer say Bascom come or Bascom go, Bascom do this or Bascom do that. I am no longer responsible for your acts under our civil law. Morally, I do feel somewhat responsible. Still, I have a clean conscience that I have done my duty towards you according to the best of my ability and my best judgment, and have but little doubt but what you will fulfill the scripture injunction, namely, honor thy father and thy mother. I hope you will feel that you are no longer responsible to me, but to yourself and to your God and for your acts. Your standing in society as a man and citizen depends on your own acts. A great deal depends on your firmness to act according to your best judgment and never be influenced to do anything against your judgment. Always have the firmness to say no when your judgment teaches you it is right. Never let on in uncertainty to this. Follow the saying of David Crockett, be sure you're right and then go ahead. I said never act on uncertainties, but it is necessary sometimes without a certainty of the result. But it is a good rule to consider always what the effect of an act will be. Reason from cause to effect. When you have time to reason, and it is always best to take time when it is possible. From the 1st to your 21st birthday grew on you so gradually that you can hardly realize it, but I want you to feel the great responsibility that now rests upon you. I cannot realize the fact that this day that is looked to by so many young men, their 21st birthday, that they will be free from any restraint of their fathers. I hope that should we be privileged to see your 31st birthday, you will still regard the advice of a father. While your prospects for the future are bright, far above the average, do not for a moment think or feel that you're independent. The time will never come that you or I will not be more or less dependent on our associates or our fellow man. No difference how humble their calling. Do not be too ready to receive favors, but always ready to grant favors when it is prudent to do so. Do not suffer anyone to get you under too many obligations to them, and you will save much trouble and annoyance as far as possible, barring trouble. If ever try to climb a hill, never try to climb a hill before you get to it, and as far as possible, let well enough alone. When you are doing well, do not be too ready to try to do better. When you are doing well, stick to your bush. The hardest rock will melt under the continual dropping of water. All you have to do to accomplish anything within the power of man is a determined effort, and the thing is done. It is never too cold or too hot, too wet or too dry, too dark or too light to entirely block a determination. Quoting, be you to others kind and true, as you should have others be to you. If you will remember what I have written to you on this your 21st birthday and act upon it, it will be worth more to you than apples of gold or pictures of silver. May the God of heaven save you in the bright beyond. I'm as ever, your Paul, E.H. Adams.
It's nice.
Isn't that a nice letter?
It is.
I mean, it's old-fashioned and all of that, but it could fit any time.
Any person.
Mm-hmm. I treasure this very much because not many of us have, things like that.
Right.
That's over 100 years old.